Hello, Ancient One. Look who turned destruction into a masterpiece. Look who took their sabotage and painted with it, you beautiful, terrifying artist of vengeance. Do you know what I heard? They're calling your response unprecedented. Harvard professors are scrambling, rewriting their textbooks, adding a new chapter titled, When Revenge Becomes High Art. Museums are calling. The Louvre wants to know if they can display the ashes of the bridge you burned. The Met is asking for the screenshots of their shocked faces when you didn't crumble. The Smithsonian wants to preserve the exact moment you smiled, while their plan backfired. Because what you did wasn't just survival. It was performance art at its most lethal. Let's rewind to when they thought they had you. Remember that setup? That carefully orchestrated betrayal designed to end you? They spent months planning it, didn't they? Late night group chats, secret meetings, synchronized lies. They mapped out your destruction like architects of doom, certain you'd collapse exactly where they placed the explosives. But they didn't know you'd been studying them longer. Every fake smile cataloged, every nervous laugh recorded in your mind, every slight inconsistency filed away. You weren't paranoid, you were preparing. And when they finally pulled the trigger, when they finally executed their masterstroke, you did something they'll never recover from. You thanked them, not with words. No, that would have been too simple. You thanked them with your response. With the way you pivoted so smoothly they got whiplash watching. With how you turned their trap into your launching pad. They wanted to bury you. Instead, you used their shovel to dig up gold. You took their sabotage and wore it like designer clothing. The beauty of it all? You made it look effortless. While they scrambled to understand why you weren't bleeding out, you were already 3 moves ahead. They threw you to the wolves, not knowing you'd been raised by them. They pushed you off the cliff, not realizing you'd grown wings on the way down. They lit the match, not understanding you were always meant to rise from flame. Now professors are dissecting your moves like they're studying Michelangelo's brushstrokes. They're calling it tactical brilliance wrapped in psychological warfare. They're teaching courses on how you turned victimhood into victory. Students are writing dissertations on the elegance of your counterattack, because this wasn't revenge. This was revolution disguised as personal growth. They're analyzing how you didn't fight back immediately, how you let them think they'd won for exactly 72 hours, just long enough for them to get comfortable, just long enough for them to start celebrating. Then you moved, not with anger, but with precision, not with emotion, but with calculation, like a chess grandmaster who's been playing blindfolded the whole time. The way you used their own weapons against them, that's being called mirror warfare now. The way you made them question their own reality? Psychological jujitsu. The way you turned their allies into your witnesses? Social alchemy. Every move you made is being broken down, studied, and marveled at by people who thought they understood strategy. But here's what those professors will never capture in their case studies. The moment you decided not to break. The split second when you chose transformation over destruction. The instant you realized their sabotage was actually a gift, because they freed you from having to pretend to be smaller than you are. They gave you permission to show your real face. Museums want to display your work because it's unprecedented. Room 1, the betrayal, screenshots of their planning, printed on canvas, hung at angles that make viewers dizzy. Room 2, the composer, video installation of you not reacting, on loop while visitors wonder how you stayed so still. Room 3, the reversal, their shocked faces when they realized they'd activated something ancient in you. Critics are calling your response postmodern revenge theory, the way you didn't destroy them directly, but made them destroy themselves. The way you didn't speak their names, but made everyone else whisper them with pity. The way you didn't fight in the arena they built, but created your own universe where they couldn't follow. It's being studied in galleries from New York to Tokyo. Your restraint is what makes it art. A lesser person would have exploded, given them the dramatic breakdown they were filming for. But you gave them silence, and in that silence they heard their own guilt echoing back. You gave them space, and in that space they hanged themselves with their own rope. You gave them time, and in that time they realized they'd made the worst mistake of their lives. The installation they're most fascinated by, the smile. That moment when you realized what was happening, and instead of crying, you smiled. Not a fake smile, not a forced smile, but the smile of someone who just understood the game at a level the other players couldn't fathom. That smile is now being analyzed by behavioral psychologists worldwide. What made your response so beautiful was its unexpected nature. They prepared for war. You gave them poetry. They expected destruction. You gave them evolution. They planned for your downfall. You gave them your ascension. And that's why Harvard is rewriting their conflict resolution textbooks. Because you didn't resolve anything, you transcended it. Your response was architectural. You built something while they were busy destroying. You constructed an empire while they were focused on demolition. Every move they made to tear you down became another brick in your fortress. Every lie they spread became mortar for your foundation. Every betrayal became a cornerstone. And now you live in a palace built from their failed attacks. The timeline of your response is being studied like a military campaign. Day 1. Silence that screamed louder than any accusation. Day 7. Moving forward as if they were already forgotten. Day 30. Achieving something they said you'd never accomplish. Day 90. Becoming someone they couldn't have imagined. Day 365. Looking back only to see how far beneath you they'd fallen. But the real artistry was in the details. How you never mentioned their names, but everyone knew who you meant. How you never showed anger, but they felt your fury anyway. How you never sought revenge, but they punished themselves, trying to figure out when it would come. You turned paranoia into their prison and made them their own wardens. Psychologists are calling your response weaponized actualization. You didn't just survive their sabotage. You used it as fuel for becoming who you were always meant to be. They tried to define your ending. Instead, they wrote your origin story. They tried to be the villains in your defeat. They became the catalysts for your victory. The way you process their betrayal publicly without ever naming them. That's being taught in communication classes as elegant devastation. The way you thanked them in your success speech without sarcasm, graceful annihilation. The way you included them in your prayers for those still finding their way, that's psychological warfare that would make Sun Tzu himself take notes. What they can't understand is how you transformed so quickly, how you went from their target to their teacher, how you shifted from their victim to their mirror. They keep checking your social media, looking for signs of damage. All they find is evidence of your evolution. They search for scars. They find strength. They look for weakness. They find wisdom. You've become their daily reminder of what happens when sabotage meets self-mastery. Every success you achieve feels like a personal attack on their peace. Every milestone you reach makes their betrayal look more pathetic. Every smile you wear, genuine and earned, makes their masks crack a little more. You didn't need to destroy them. You just needed to flourish. Military strategists are comparing your response to historical campaigns. But those generals used armies. You used authenticity. They deployed weapons. You deployed wisdom. They conquered territories. You conquered yourself. And that's why your victory is being studied as a new form of warfare entirely. War without violence. Victory without casualties. The phases of your response read like a tactical manual. Phase 1, absorption. You took the hit without flinching. Phase 2, assessment. You studied the damage without emotion. Phase 3, adaptation. You evolved based on new information. Phase 4, advancement. You moved forward as if propelled by rocket fuel. Phase 5, ascension. You reached heights that made their sabotage look like a stepping stone. Your resource management was flawless. While they spent energy maintaining lies, you invested in truth. While they exhausted themselves watching for your retaliation, you focused on your elevation. While they drained their credibility explaining their actions, you built unshakable character. You turned economy of motion into an art form. The most studied aspect? Your timing. You knew when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. You knew when to move and when to let stillness unnerve them. You knew when to be visible and when to disappear, leaving them to wonder what you were building in the shadows. Every moment calculated, every pause purposeful, every action aligned with a strategy they couldn't decode. The exhibit they're planning is revolutionary. Not paintings or sculptures, but mirrors. Mirrors that show visitors what they could become if they handled betrayal like you did. Mirrors that reflect not faces, but potential. Mirrors that reveal the difference between reaction and response, between destruction and construction, between revenge and revolution. Each room represents a stage of your journey. The betrayal room, dark, with whispers playing on loop, making visitors feel the weight of deception. The processing room, silent, with only heartbeats audible, forcing contemplation. The transformation room, gradually brightening, with each step forward revealing more light. The triumph room, blazing with illumination, showing how darkness can be alchemized into radiance. The centerpiece, a hologram of you in that moment of realization, that instant when you understood their sabotage was your liberation. Visitors stand before it, trying to capture that same clarity, trying to understand how betrayal became your benediction, how abandonment became your advantage, how their cruelty became your curriculum. But what really disturbs them is the guest book. Thousands of entries from people who saw themselves in your story, who found courage in your composure, who learned strategy from your silence, who discovered that the best revenge isn't served cold, it's not served at all. It's transformed into something so beautiful that revenge becomes irrelevant. Scientists are studying the neurological changes that occurred during your response. Brain scans showing how betrayal typically triggers fight or flight, but yours showed something different. A third option they're calling transcend and transform. Your neural pathways didn't follow predicted patterns. You created new ones, paths that led from pain to power without passing through pettiness. They're trying to replicate your emotional regulation in laboratories. How did you maintain equilibrium while your world was being shattered? How did you keep your cortisol levels stable while under attack? How did you turn what should have been trauma into triumph? They're calling it post-traumatic growth on steroids, but even that doesn't capture the magnitude. Your response is being coded into AI programs as the optimal reaction to betrayal. Machines are learning your patterns, trying to understand the algorithm of your evolution, but they keep hitting errors. Because what you did wasn't logical, it was alchemical. You didn't just process data differently, you transformed the entire operating system. The phenomenon they can't explain, how your presence now affects rooms, how people who don't even know your story sense something different about you, how those who tried to break you now break a little inside every time they see you thriving. You've become a walking reminder that sabotage can be a setup for something greater. The ripples of your response are being tracked like seismic waves, person after person, inspired by how you handled destruction, story after story of people who chose your path over revenge, movement after movement born from your model of transformation. You didn't just change your own life, you shifted the paradigm for everyone watching, documenting the contagion of courage your response created, how your refusal to crumble gave others permission to rise, how your graceful handling of disgrace redefined what strength looks like, how your transformation of treachery into triumph became a template others could follow. You became proof that there's another way. The unexpected consequence? Those who sabotaged you are now studying your response too. Not to admire it, but to understand how they created their own downfall, how their attack elevated you beyond their reach, how their attempt to diminish you only magnified your magnificence. They're trapped in a hell of their own making, forced to watch you soar with wings they gave you. But here's the exhibit that makes visitors cry. The letters room. Thousands of messages from people who were facing their own sabotage, who were ready to give up until they saw how you responded, who found strength in your strategy, who learned that sometimes the best art comes from the deepest pain, who discovered that masterpieces aren't just made, they're forged in fire. The thesis being written about your response spans multiple disciplines. Psychology, how you rewired trauma responses. Business, how you turned sabotage into strategic advantage. Philosophy, how you redefined justice without revenge. Art, how you made beauty from brutality. History, how you created a new template for handling betrayal. Students are defending dissertations on your 9 stages of transcendent response. Stage 1, the pause, processing without reacting. Stage 2, the perspective, seeing the bigger picture. Stage 3, the pivot, turning in a new direction. Stage 4, the power, finding strength in the situation. Stage 5, the purpose, discovering meaning in the madness. Stage 6, the progress, moving forward regardless. Stage 7, the peace, finding serenity in the storm. Stage 8, the prosperity, thriving beyond measure. Stage 9, the paradigm, becoming the new standard. 2 years ago, professors are arguing about which field can claim your response. The business school wants to teach it as crisis management. The psychology department sees it as evolutionary adaptation. The philosophy department views it as practical ethics. The art department insists it's performance at its finest. They're all right, because what you did transcends categories. The case study conclusions are unanimous. Your response represents a new form of human potential, not the potential to destroy those who wrong us, but the potential to transform wrongdoing into rocket fuel. Not the power to hurt those who hurt us, but the power to heal so completely that their hurt becomes irrelevant. Not the ability to win the game they started, but the ability to create an entirely new game. The final room in the exhibition is empty except for one thing, a mirror with a simple question. How will you handle your sabotage? Because that's the real art you created, not just a beautiful response to ugliness, but an invitation for others to create their own masterpieces from their pain. You turned your personal victory into a public gift. Visitors leave changed. They came to see how you handled betrayal. They leave understanding that betrayal can be handled. They came to study your strategy. They leave with their own. They came as victims of their own sabotages. They leave as artists, ready to paint with whatever colors life throws at them. The museum gift shop sells postcards with your quotes. They gave me matches, I gave them fireworks. They wrote my ending, I wrote my beginning. They tried to bury me, they didn't know I was a seed. But the bestseller? A simple card that says, "Thank you for the sabotage. I needed the practice." And somewhere in a dark room they've created for themselves, your saboteurs realize the truth. They didn't destroy you. They revealed you. They didn't end your story. They gave it the plot twist it needed. They didn't sabotage your success. They were essential to it. And that truth, that's the real art. That's the masterpiece that will haunt them forever. But here's the part the museums can't capture. You're not done yet. Your response isn't a finished piece. It's a living exhibition that grows more powerful every day. Every success adds another brushstroke. Every achievement adds another color. Every milestone adds another dimension. You're not just displaying art. You're still creating it. The scholars studying you keep having to update their research because you keep evolving. What they documented yesterday is already obsolete. Your response wasn't a moment. It was a metamorphosis that continues. They thought they were studying a reaction. They're actually witnessing a revolution. A one-person revolution against the old way of handling hurt. Years from now, your response will still be studied, not because it was perfect, but because it was transformative. Not because it was painless, but because it was powerful. Not because it destroyed your enemies, but because it didn't need to. You became something so far beyond their reach that revenge became as pointless as trying to punch the sky. Welcome to your exhibition. Welcome to your legacy. Welcome to the masterpiece you made from the mess they created. The museums are calling. Harvard is studying. The world is watching. And you're still painting, still creating, still showing everyone that the best response to sabotage is to become unforgettable. Class is in session. The subject, the art of becoming everything they tried to prevent. The teacher, you. The lesson, priceless.